Okay, hello everyone, good afternoon. Thank you very much for joining the webinar with me today. My name is Richard and I work for the team at Seneca. My role is looking at working with schools across the UK to make sure they get the most out of Seneca. So that sort of brings me in my role to supporting you guys today to getting the most out of how Seneca can work with Microsoft Teams and Google Classroom and how they can all work together so that you can get the most out of all platforms. What I'm going to talk about today is I'm going to start off with a brief introduction to what Seneca actually is in case it's new to anyone on the call. And that would be just a brief overview of some of the background behind it and how it came to be what it is today. And then we're going to go on to look at the Teacher platform and actually how the Teacher platform integrates with Microsoft Teams and Google Classroom and all that stuff that you will want to see, so you can make sure you can make the most of all the technology options that are available to you. So what I'm going to do in a second is I'm going to share my screen, but just to explain first of all how the session will work. So as I say, I'll share my screen with you, but there'll obviously be an opportunity for you to ask questions as well. I imagine the questions will come up throughout the session, and that's obviously absolutely fine. So what we're going to do is in the Zoom box that you'll see on your, that you'll be looking at me on, you'll see there's a chat button at the bottom of that screen. If you just hover your mouse over my face, and if you click on that chat button, then it will load up the live chat down the side. So you'll be able to see any questions anyone's asked. You'll be able to ask questions yourself. And do feel that you can just ask questions whenever. You don't have to wait for a certain period to ask a question. And what I'll do is towards the end, if those questions are coming in throughout the presentation, I'll then come back to them and answer those at the end of the session. So if you have something specific about a certain part of the presentation that you want to ask about, just go ahead and do it there and then, and I'll come back to it. Okay. So without further ado, what I'm going to do is I'm going to share my screen now, and then you can see exactly what I'm going to be talking about. So there we go. So we should all be able to see that. If you can't see that, please do just let me know. And what I'll do is I will, I'll just make sure that I set the right settings. But anyway, so as I say, I'm going to give you a brief overview first of what Seneca actually is and some of the science behind it. So we are a distance learning and homework platform, and we offer content that students can log in and study, and then teachers can go away and look at the content and understand and pupil progress, look at the data, and parents can do the same as well to see what their child's up to. Now, before lockdown happened, we were used by lots of people. The lockdown obviously changed how schools and parents and teachers and students were using Seneca, which then became much more of a distance learning platform, but was still used by a lot of schools for homework, revision, flipped learning, all those other ways that we have been used in the past are still present. So some of the best things I think worth highlighting about Seneca and what it is that we do is that everything we do is based on cognitive science. So the latest theory in terms of what is shown to be effective in learning is automatically baked into the system. So you don't need to worry about whether your students are or aren't learning or using the most effective learning strategies. It just happens automatically. Speaking of automatic, we also got everything on there is automatically marked. So you as a teacher, when your students are completing work, you are able to look at the data and understand where your students are struggling across your course. And obviously, as I say, yeah, that sort of encompasses point 3 really about tracking progress. So you can track progress across different time periods. If you're setting an assignment, you can look specifically at that assignment period for that data. And yeah, you can really drill down into the data, which I'll show you a bit later. Fourthly, everything on there is adaptive. So it's what the technology people would call adaptive learning. It's what you guys in the classroom would call differentiation. And that is basically, so if you stood behind 2 students and sort of watched what they were doing as they went through the same Seneca course, you would see 2 very different screens. Basically, depending on how they answer, the system will automatically adapt what it is that those students see. be that giving them more support and keeping them on sort of easier concepts if that's appropriate, or moving them on when it's appropriate as well, so that they can so that they can move forward. And lastly, that everything I show you today is free to use. So we offer loads and loads of free content and free functionality for you guys. And yeah, so I'll show you all the stuff. I'm not going to show you any of the premium stuff today. I'll just focus on what is available for free, so you can see what you can get going with. Now, as I say, we worked with experts in cognitive science for education to make sure that we understood and knew how to implement the latest learning theories from cognitive science. But we wanted to validate and make sure that the way we implemented the theory was effective. So what we did was we did a randomized controlled trial, and that was with just over 1,100 pupils. And what we did, we compared Seneca to other sort of independent learning tools, if you like, some things like revision guides. And if you look at the data here, if you compare the pre-test results, which are very similar to the post-test results, what you'll see is that the Seneca scores in the post-test results, the sort of headline is that it's over twice as effective in terms of helping students to learn when comparing it to those revision guides. So we sort of see this large sample size bit of research as a validation of what we're doing and the implementation of our theory. And this research was peer reviewed and published. So if you want to read about it in more detail, obviously feel free to ask me some questions if you want, but also you can just go straight to these websites and search for them on there, and you'll find what you're looking for, and you can read the research. So in terms of what we have on Seneca, we have content right from Key Stage 2 up to the end of A levels, and everything on there is either linked to the national curriculum if it's Key Stage 2 and 3, or to the exact exam board specifications at Key Stage 4 and 5. So so you can be basically really reassured that whatever your student is studying on there is exactly what they need to know for their exams, and we cover all the content for free from those. Currently, we've got about 3.5 million, these figures are a bit out of date, but 3.5 million pupils using the platform, and about 150,000 teachers. So lots of people using it, which is great, and we're really pleased that we were able to help and support over the last 6 months or so, and before that. So what I'm going to do now, that's sort of a bit of a background for you. Hopefully that gives you a bit of context. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to move on to the actual teacher platform, which is going to form the sort of basis of what I show you on Seneca. I'm not going to show you any of the student platform today, because we're going to focus on how you guys can link up with Teams and Classroom as effectively as possible. But what you can do with a teacher account is you can actually just try out as a student to see what it's like. This is a teacher account, for example, and if you want to try it out, you can just click student platform at the top here, and it's probably best you just have a little browse yourself when it works for you. So as I say, this is what the Teach platform looks like, and this is the screen you get to when you first log in. Now, there's a few different things that are sort of basic setup stuff that I should probably talk through before I go into the actual integration with Teams and Classroom. So start with creating a class. If you want to start afresh and you've just created your account, you want to know how to create your very first class, you literally click Create Class. You give the class a name, whatever it is you want, and then you create that class. Now at this point, obviously, all the class is basically an area that's been named by you. It's nothing more than that. But it gives you this 4-step process to basically set up your class. So at any point, you can just click Get Help, and it will give you some support on that. But when you're ready, you just go to the next step. So the first step is to add some courses to the class for your students to study. So I can go and add courses. And I can either use the filters down the side here or the search bar along the top. But I can just go down and select whatever courses I want to select, as many or as few as I fancy. And when I'm ready, you can see I've selected 9 here. I can then just go to the top and I can just click add courses up here. Now, once that's done, you can then start to create your first assignment. And again, you can get help or support if you need it, but let's just go straight in and create an assignment. And I can choose from one of those 9 courses I've just added. Bit of a random selection I went for, but we can go for this business one, for example. And if you're familiar with the Edexcel Business GCSE course, you will know that this is taken straight from the spec. So I can go in here, if I want to, I can preview any of these sessions, or I can just go ahead and start selecting the ones I want to set for my students down the side here. So I can select it again as many or as few as I fancy. And what you'll see at the top here is there's a little estimate of the amount of time that will take, which is quite handy, and that will just update as you add more sections. So it's quite good for planning how much to set your students. And then if I click assign here, I then give the assignment a name. I can spell. And a start and an end date. So the start and an end date is really important and a really good feature, because actually what you can do is then plan way ahead into the future. If you want, you can do it all in one go and just set all of your assignments for a half term, say, for example, in one go. And it will only show for the student after the start date. So then click create. And obviously that then creates the assignment. But there's one big issue at the moment, so I haven't actually invited any students. I haven't got any students in this account. I haven't done anything like that. So that's the final step is to invite some students. So I click on that, and I've got a few different options, but we'll focus on these middle 2 options for the purpose of this session. So what I'll do is I'll show you the process of doing this with both Google Classroom and Microsoft Teams, and I'll show you just click Google Classroom first. So if I click on Google Classroom, what it will do is it will load up into Google Classroom, and the first thing you have to do is choose what class you want to set it for. So let's go for this Year 10 group, and then you can choose an action. So Google Classroom allows you to do 4 different actions when you're posting things. You can either create an assignment, which is pretty self-explanatory, as is ask a question, make an announcement, or create material. So create material is probably the only one that would need it explaining, and that is basically, say you're uploading a resource that you want your students to have access to. Say it might be, for example, like a source in history, or a PDF of a text in English, for example, or a formula sheet or something like that. But what we're going to do for this is we're going to make an announcement to let students know that this class has been created on Seneca and that they need to join it. So I'm going to make an announcement, click go. And you can see this link's been automatically generated for Seneca, and I've just got a space to write a message. So something like, click the link to join the class. And you can see down the side here, you've got options. You can choose to set it for other groups as well. And you can also set it just for specific students if you want. So it gives you quite a lot of functionality on the different options you have for who you want to send this to. The other thing to say is can either post straight away, or you've got these options if you click on this down arrow to schedule it for later. So it will pop up for the students a bit later, or to save it so you can come back to it later and complete it. Again, quite handy just to have those options available. But let's just post it for now. And then it always gives you an option to post, to view that post on in your class. So if you click view, and there you go, at 16:14, I've just posted that link. Click here to join the class. And when a student clicks on that link, what happens is they get taken through to Seneca. If they've not logged in already, they'll just be asked to log in. But if they're already logged in, they'll just be taken straight to this screen. Just give it a moment to load. So you've just joined class name, which, remember the name I gave the class earlier. And it just gives the students some details. And then when I click continue, I can go through to that class. You can see those 9 courses I added earlier. And you can see that assignment that I set just now as well. So that's the sort of process students will go through when they sort of join your class. Now, to go back and show that same process on Microsoft Teams, it's fairly similar, but I'll just talk you through it again. So this time I'm going to invite students on Microsoft Teams. So again, I'll click here. And give it a second to load. So the difference with Microsoft Teams is that rather than having classes, it's split up into what they call teams or channels. Okay, so what you can do is you can share to either a team or a channel. And what I'm going to do here is I've got a channel that's my Year 10 Maths group already set up. So I can just search for that and select it, and then again put a similar message as I did before. And that link's automatically generated to join that class. And down the bottom here, I can click share. And then it confirms that the link has been shared. And if I go and look in Google Classroom, in Microsoft Teams now, you'll see that 1616, that post I just made. Again, if I clicked on this link, it would take me through the same process as before when I did it on Google Classroom. So yeah, students click on that and then they'll automatically join the class. So that's in terms of joining the class. You'll then want to actually do some work with your students once they've joined. So what I'll do is I'll just flip into a class that has 30 students in there, so it makes a bit more sense. And you can see how that works. So yeah, you can see some basic data on this class. You can see I've got 30 students here. A lot of assignments that I've set. I've got some teachers that I can, if I want to share this class with another teacher, I can just add the teacher in and send them an email to invite them to the class. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how the assignments can link up with Google Classroom and Microsoft Teams now. So again, if I go into assignments, I can see I've got some assignments here. But what I can do is I can create a new assignment just clicking up here. And just like I did before, I can select, this is a Key Stage 2 course that I'm looking at here, but it's the same process. I can just select as many or a few of these sections as I want. I can then assign them. You can see now I've got lots of students in there, so I can choose to select for all or just some, whichever I want. Let's just do all for the moment, and then click next. And give it a name again, whatever it is, and then again a start and end date, and then you can create that class and it will get pushed out to your students' accounts. Now, to notify your students that this has happened to their Seneca account, they've got a new assignment, again you can use Google Classroom or Microsoft Teams. So again, let me show you Google Classroom first, and then I'll show you Microsoft Teams afterwards. So if I click on Google Classroom, again, it's the same process. I choose my class, I then choose my action. Now this time I am creating an assignment on Seneca, so it makes sense to create an assignment here. And I click go. Now when you create an assignment, it gives you a few more options down this right-hand side, but again, the link's automatically generated for you. You give it a title if you want, and instructions. And this time I can again select different students, individuals within this class if I want to. If you're using the mark book within Google Classroom, you can assign a number of points to it, but I'll just leave it as unmarked for the moment. You can also set a due date if that's useful. And then you can also assign a topic. Now I'll leave this blank for the moment because I'll show you how the topics feature works in a second once once I've posted this. Now again, I can choose to assign straight away, or if I click this down arrow, I can schedule it for later or save it as a draft and come back to it. But let's again just go ahead and assign. And again, it gives you the option to view. You give it a second, here you go, 1620, I have posted that assignment here. Now I should say this, you see the announcement I made earlier and the assignment I put here. Both of them have gone into what's called the stream on Google Classroom. So the stream is almost like the sort of message board of the classroom, basically. So it allows you to talk to students and communicate with students. It allows students to communicate with you. You can add comments, students can add comments. So yeah, it allows you to basically have that two-way conversation. But the assignment will also go into the area for classwork. So if I open that up and show you what that looks like. So you'll see here the assignment I've just created, this one here, is there. It's just at the top of the page here. Now this is because these three pieces of these three parts of the classwork currently have no topic assigned to them, which is why they're just at the top here. And you'll see I've got topics below that I can set up. If you want to, basically the purpose of this is to allow you and your students to organize the work. So if you as a teacher think that this goes under topic 1, whatever topic 1 may be, you can just pick it up and drag it down and it pops in there, and then it sorts it out. And it's important to say on Google Classroom and Microsoft Teams, this is the case, that whatever you see is what the students see. So this same format is what the students will see, and you can just drag these down to whichever sections you want, and just to reorder them and organize it for you and your students. And then students can click on these and complete the assignments. So that's it in Classroom. Again, let's show you the same process in Microsoft Teams. So again, I've created the assignment. I've got to this stage here. At this time, instead of Google Classroom, I'm going to do it on Microsoft Teams. So again, I click that link. Again, that link will automatically be generated to allow my students to go straight into the assignment. But I should need to choose first my Year 10 Maths group. And then I need to, again, pop a message in. Whatever it is that makes sense for your students. And again, down the bottom corner here, I just click share. And that confirmation comes up again saying my link has been shared. And if I just go over into Microsoft Teams, you'll then see here 1623, that link that I've just posted is here. Student clicks on that, then they will be directed to the assignment. So obviously, once your students start completing assignments, you're going to have lots of nice data here. And I spoke earlier about how everything is automated in terms of marking and sort of data analysis for you. So let me show you that next, I think. So if we go, this is obviously no one's completed this at the moment, but if I go into an old assignment, we'll be able to see some data from some students. So say this one here. Give it a second to load, and there you go, you'll see. So this is an assignment that I shared a few different sections for my students to complete. And I can see that I've got a nice red, amber, green here, and I can see exactly what my students have or haven't understood based on the topics that are at the top here. So a few things to note is this status column here. So at the moment, these timers mean it was just completed late. It says at the top here, a tick would just mean it was completed on time, and a cross would mean it was incomplete. And what you can do also, you can change the metrics. So at the moment, I've got best score selected, but I can choose most recent attempts. If I select that, it just changes all the data below. The same if I selected worst attempts, you'd see a lot more red, obviously. Average score, you can also select number of attempts and total study time. So you can see some really good data on what your students been up to as part of this assignment. Now, once you had a chance to look at this, you can also do things like you can sort by any of these columns. So if I want to see who's done particularly well or badly at exception words, I can click on this and I can see Marie has not done particularly well. And if I click again, it will tell me who's done particularly well. So Tommy and Yasmin done particularly well in this example. Now, this data is obviously very useful. You want to be able to do something with this. So you'll want to either put in place some sort of intervention or some support for people like Marine, Lorena, Leah, etc. So what we've done is, again, we provide you with an option to automatically reset that work. And don't forget that Seneca will automatically adapt, so it will know what the student's done last time if you do a piece of work again. So what you can do is use this smart reassign button. And what it will do is, based on the data that you are showing, you'll be able to automatically reset work for your students. So I can basically say, okay, for all the students that either didn't complete a section or got less than 50% on a section, I want to reassign this work. And you can select as many or as few of these options as you want. But if I just click reassign at the click of a button, once I've given it a name, and a start and an end date, if I then click reassign, that will automatically be sent out to my students. And again, I can share this on Google Classroom and Microsoft Teams so that you can do that there. Don't know why that's happened. Okay, so that's that reassignment. There you go. I'm not sure why that didn't work. But yeah, so you can see it's reassigned. It's selected particular students who got less than 50% or didn't complete the work, and it's set that work accordingly automatically for you. Now, that's obviously very good to see all that data in an assignments setting. If you want to see the data in the data for what students are completing independent of assignments, so separately, you can use this Insights tab here to see the data. So again, if you click on that, you then just choose the course you want to see data for, choose the metric like we did before, the same options are available. And the date range that you want to see data for. So let's select the last year, just as an example. Or if you want to, you can select a custom date range as well. But if I select sections, like when I was choosing an assignment, I can choose the sections this time that I want to see data for. So I want to see all of the data for all my students for all of this stuff, so I can understand what is going on. So then I select those sections at the top and I give it a second just to pull that data through. And then you can see all of the data that your students have or haven't completed within that time period and for that course you've selected. Again, you can sort by any of these columns. So again, exception words, for example, you can sort by worst to best, best to worst, and everything's automatically red, amber, green, which is very handy as well. Now, I should have said this before on assignments, but I'll mention it now. Any place that there is data on Seneca, you have the option to export it to CSV. So if I was to click this button here, it would basically just create a spreadsheet that would be all the data that's on screen at that point. It would just be put into a spreadsheet for you. So then that allows you to do whatever is useful with that data. Now, the final place to see data on Seneca is in this Students tab. Now, this is like the highest level overview, basically, of what your students have been up to. It doesn't go down into any of the detail that assignments or insights would go into, but it would give you an overview of what's been going on. So for each student, it would give you the total learning time, the average score they've got, the number of sessions they've completed, and the correct number of correct answers. This might be a good bit of data to use with some sort of reward scheme that you have in school potentially, as sort of a high level overview of what the students have been up to. And again, you can export to CSV if that's useful to you. So that is that from the sort of Seneca and Teams and Classrooms perspective. There's one other thing that I wanted to show you in Google Classroom quickly. Sorry, in Microsoft Teams quickly. Unfortunately, this isn't an option in Google Classroom. But when you're in a channel on Microsoft Teams, you have the option to create additional tabs at the top here. So you've got 3 tabs there at the moment. What you can do is actually create an additional tab, which allows you to have Seneca embedded within Microsoft Teams. So let me show you what that looks like and how to do it. So if you click on that plus just at the top here, if I click on that, you have a whole host of like third-party integrations that you can use. So things like Microsoft products like Word and Excel, but then you also have other companies that have created content for you to, created programs for you to use within Microsoft Teams. And what the other option is you can do is actually go straight in and add a website. So if you click website, give the tab a name, which you'd call Seneca, and then paste a URL for that website. So what you can do is just paste this straight in, and this can be found at the beginning of any web page that you are on Seneca. You'll see this app.senecalearning.com. Make sure you just include the HTTPS in there. And you can choose to post in the channel about it or not, whichever you want. And then when you click save, it will basically make a brand new tab that will say Seneca at the top here. And it will pop up with Seneca within your Microsoft Teams. So you won't have to go to another tab or anything like that. It's automatically there, which again is a really nice feature and will allow your students and you to have really quick, easy access to Seneca, so that they can access the work and you can access the data. So that's a really nice feature. Unfortunately, not a feature on Google Classroom, which is a shame. Okay, so I'm going to come back and see if there are any questions on any of that. And if there are any questions that you haven't written in yet, please do write them in now, so I can answer those for you. Let me just check if there are any questions. Okay, it doesn't look like there's any questions at the moment. If you haven't had a chance to write down your question, but you have one, please do write it in now. Meanwhile, while I'm waiting for that, I just will explain one other thing. So on here, you'll see that this is Seneca. What's loaded up in here will be whatever account is logged in at the time on this computer. So for me, this is my parent account that I've logged into. So you may or may not know that Seneca also has parent accounts that the parents can use for free. And what they are able to see is basically data on what students have been up to on their Seneca account. So they can really be part of the student's learning and understanding what the student has and hasn't been done. And as I'm sure you're aware, sort of having parents involved in the child's education can have a really transformative effect. The research sort of all indicates that. So this is a really good way to sort of open dialogue between you and parents, but also between students and their parents as well. So they can again see that data that you would be able to see in your account. They can see that data, so they can see what's going on with their child. To set an account, it's just this parent just needs to go to senecalearning.com and create an account. And as I say, it's free to do and free to use as well. So that is that. Let me just come back and see if there are any final questions. So question from Henry, will your presentation be available by email? So what I'll say, Henry, is if you go to our YouTube channel, which is, if you just search for Seneca CPD, this exact recording has been streamed up there. So if you want to view it again or share it with anyone, you can literally just share the link straight from YouTube. Yeah, that's what I'd suggest. Question from A. Hodson. I had to join the training late. Will there be a link to see the presentation again? Well, I've already answered that. So yeah, so just head to our Seneca CPD YouTube channel. Question from Miss Fuller. Is there any way of adding assignments to multiple groups across classroom and teams? So so the quick answer is yes, there is. But you need to be a little bit careful because a student will only be able to see an assignment if they are in that, a Seneca assignment if they are in that class in Seneca. So when a student, if you're sharing, say, one assignment across lots and lots of different classes, that's fine as long as all of the students in all of those classes have access to the class on Seneca and therefore have access to the assignment. Okay, so yes, you can, and I'll quickly show you how that works. So I should say you can only actually do it, I think, on Classroom, not Teams, but let me just double check this. So say this, for example, this one here, if I wanted to share this assignment, I'll just click share at the top here. If I go into Google Classroom, I can select, if I make an announcement, I can then choose down the side here if I want. I can select it for these other groups as well, which are just other classes, and then we'll select it for 3 classes. But don't forget, each of those 3 classes have to have access to this class on Seneca. Okay, let's just check if we can do it in Teams. Don't think you can. Let's check. It's not loading for some reason. My internet's being a bit slow. Let's go and try on here instead. So say I wanted here, if I wanted to no, so it doesn't look like you can share that across different classes on Teams, unfortunately, but you can on Google Classroom. Okay. Question from D. Murphy. Murphy, is the parent account linked only to their child's account? So yes, so there's no link between the parent and the teacher account, but the parent can see all the data from that their child has been up to, and you can see all the data that their child, as in your student, has been up to. So there's no link between teacher and parent, but there is a link between teacher, student, parent, student. Okay. Are there any more questions on any of that, or anything you'd like me to clarify or show you again? That's absolutely fine. Now's the time to ask. Otherwise, what I'll just say is, oh, quick last question from D. Murphy. No. So D. Murphy says, is there any link between a parent and another parent's child? So the way that the system works is that when a parent sets up an account, they're not at that point connected to anyone. So they need to send a link to a student and to their child, and the child will then click on the link and give permission for that parent to see the data. And obviously, if that will only happen to their child. If they do share it to another child, then and that child clicks on the link, then they will be able to see it, but the child has to give the explicit permission for the parent to be able to see it. So yeah. Okay, well, I hope that's helped everyone. As I say, if you want to watch back this recording, just go back onto the Seneca CPD YouTube channel. But otherwise, yeah, best of luck for the year ahead, and stay in touch and keep on keep an eye out for all the different sort of developments we have with Seneca over the year, because there are bound to be lots. Anyway, have a great evening, and thanks very much.